under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy. It's your boy Steve, and man, oh man, it is Thursday night, and man, we are getting closer and closer and closer to the roster announcement. And of course, I will have my official World Cup roster show coming up within the next week and a half. I don't necessarily want to be too far out. And of course, I don't want to necessarily be too far close. So yeah, within about a week and a half, I will have that show as I announce my official roster. But that is not tonight. Tonight, we are handing out our report cards, our final grades for the U.S. men's national team pool players for the calendar year of 2025, 2026. And of course, we are going to be talking about some domestic players as well, too, not just based off their 2025 calendar season, but also their run in the 2025 season for the U.S. men's national team. And of course, their run so far in the first quarter of the 2026 MLS season. And it's going to be an interesting show, too, because there are some very good performances. And then there was some very not so good performances, and it kind of highlights and illuminates just kind of where we are currently going into this roster announcement. And I think it should be quite fun. All right. So before we get into it, please do me a favor and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell as well, too, so you don't miss out on the upcoming Stateside Footy content. I do want to send a quick shout out to all the homies that are watching in on TikTok Live. I also want to throw some love to those that are tuning in via X and then also YouTube as well, too. Man, you guys are awesome. Man, I just appreciate all the support that I'm currently given as well, too, man. I'm very appreciative of you guys. So, yeah, man. Let's go ahead and kick on. All right, we begin this conversation with the same group that we always start off, and that's the strikers as well, too. And this is actually kind of it's actually been a really good group this season. And a lot of these guys took that next step, and it's kind of interesting to see where we were at the end of the 2024-2025 calendar season, dealing with some of the injuries that we were dealing with, i.e. Ricardo Pepi, and Flo Balogun took a knock in that season last year, and there was a lot of question marks with this group, and of course, in the 2026 season, I gotta say, man, this has actually been quite nice to see. And of course, we begin with Flo Balogun, and Flo, for all his greatness, and it's not just club form; it's also U.S. men's national team form as well too. In the in the 2025-2026 season, he started 24 matches, appeared in 28, 2,079 minutes, and he ended up netting 13 goals and 4 assists this season, in a season that was relatively healthy. And of course, he was absolutely brilliant in the Champions League as well, too. And when you factor in club form and national team form, he has clearly been the brightest, in the striker group. And for that reason, I give Flo an A+ grade. There's nothing else that you can actually give him at this stage, because just when you think Flo is starting to taper off a little bit, he'll go on a hot streak. And just when you think that's starting to taper off, all of a sudden he'll have a game where he'll bang in 2 goals. And then all of a sudden, he keeps up this pace. Now, granted, 13 goals in Ligue 1 isn't exactly it's not exactly the greatest tally, for a French league. But that being said, when you look at his total GA with Champions League included, it's actually a really nice number. And of course, you talk about a guy who's peaking at the right time. And then, from that standpoint, when you kind of look at the season in a vacuum and you kind of look at his age and you see exactly where he's at, it makes you think that he can make that next step up. And that's something that I'm looking forward to Flo in the summer as well, too, after the World Cup, because if he has the type of World Cup that I think he can have, he's going to have suitors lining up post World Cup. And this is like the perfect opportunity for him to make the jump across the channel into England, and step up to a big club, because I actually think that he's got the mentality. I don't think this is like the Ricardo Pepi to Fulham type of deal. I actually think he's a little bit better for that. And I got a team as well for you as well, too. It's right here on my back wall. And I think he would be absolutely perfect for a Tottenham team that absolutely needs a striker, that needs a consistent striker, that actually has that top end goal scoring capability, and somebody who is still growing into the position, that is ready to make that next step up. And of course, obviously Spurs are a big team, and I think he would be a perfect logical fit. All right. Speaking of Ricardo Pepi, as we brought Pepi in a little bit just a second ago, Pepi is an interesting candidate, because he only started 14 matches this season, and he was dealing with injuries. He appeared in 24, but he only had 1,239 minutes this season, and yet he was still able to score 14 goals this season in the Eredivisie. And of course, when you look at the fact that PSV won the Eredivisie yet again, playing for a high caliber team in the Dutch Eredivisie, and then of course he gets the move over to Fulham. So you're looking at that in a construct. And you're like, okay, well, home dude had a good season. The problem with Pepi is the fact that he got hurt a couple times this season, and he had to miss large stretches. And for me, that's where I have a problem with this. This is where my problem with Pepi comes in, is because you're wondering whether or not he's reliable. Where especially when you consider the Premier League, right? The Premier League is a massive jump for a dude that doesn't necessarily have the size on his frame yet. I'm not saying that he's not going to succeed. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he's susceptible to injuries, and this is now the second straight year that he's kind of been dealing with knocks that have kept him out for long stretches of time. Now, granted, when he steps on the pitch, dude's automatic. Dude can score goals from different looks. He can give you different looks. If you need an out and out target 9, he can be that. If you need a poacher, he can be that. So he can give you multiple looks. But that being said, when you look at his national team form compared to his club form in the 2025 season, coming into the 2026 calendar, heading into the World Cup, there's a lot to be considered here with Ricardo Pepi. And this is kind of the reason, I would assume this is the reason why Patrick Aubameyang got a lot of run with Poch in 2025, is the unknown with Ricardo Pepi. And I'm not saying that Aubameyang's a better player. That's not what I'm saying. Ricardo Pepi is far and away the better player. Let's just understand that. What I'm saying is, from a consistency standpoint, Aubameyang was giving Pochettino that. And for long stretches, especially in 2025, towards the end of the season when he was out with the knee injury, and we were waiting for him to come back in 2025, 2026, and he did, but then he got hurt again. He had the arm injury. And so for that, I'm going to give Ricardo Pepi a B. It easily would have been an A. It easily would have been an A. But, there is the injury concerns that he's had over the last year that have to be taken into consideration when I hand out this grade. But that being said, it doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It doesn't mean that he's not going to show up for the World Cup, because I actually think he's going to be one of the key contributors this summer. But from a total grade standpoint for the 2025-2026 calendar season, it's those injuries that kind of takes him down a little bit, whereas Flo was there all season, and he was doing a very good job for Monaco. All right, let's get into Haji Wright. And Haji, what a great story for Haji this season. In Coventry, and he was under. I always forget his name. Former Chelsea player. Jesus Christ. What's his name? I can see his face. Frank Lampard. There it is. Frank Lampard. Good grief. Anyways, had a very, I would consider this probably one of his best seasons, if not his best, if not his career year. Under Frank Lampard, of course, not only did they win promotion, so not only is Haji Wright going to be in the Premier League next season, but in 40 matches, he appeared in 40 matches, started 31. Gave you different looks, not only as an out-and-out target striker, but also he played a little bit on the left-hand side for Frank Lampard to 2,500 minutes, and he scored 17 goals in a very good campaign for Coventry. The issue with Haji is that I'll give you a good example of this. He scores against Bristol City in a 2-0 win on March 7th. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games left in the season. And he only scored once more down the stretch. And that was kind of Haji Wright's season, where it was, you look at the end numbers and you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, he nearly touched 20 goals. He was in the top 5 of scorers in the championship. What's wrong? Well, he's kind of a streaky goal scorer. He goes on purple patches, and then he'll have those type of stretches where he'll go goalless for quite a long time. A very good example of this was back in the October window when Haji Wright scored. I think he scored a brace against Australia, and then he went 17 games without scoring, having a goal or an assist. Like, he went on a 17-game, scoreless drought before he goes on a purple patch again for like a month and a half, and that to me is like the last ingredient of like a very good player, is finding that next level consistency where that takes you from being like a B player to an A player, where teams in big leagues across Europe are actually going to be coveting you. And I think that is like the last thing that he has to work on before he gets to that stage. Now, the problem with Haji Wright is that I believe he's 28 years old. So he's in his prime right now. I know it's kind of hard to see Haji Wright as 28 years old, but that's the reality of Haji. And so I'm not saying an old dog can't learn new tricks, but the reality is it's like he has to hit the ground running. And this is it for Haji. If he shows up to the World Cup and he produces, and there's no reason why I don't think he can or he can't, then obviously, Coventry City has that dude, and they're not going to necessarily look to fortify that position, because if Haji has that next level type of, World Cup moment type of, scenario happen for him, yeah, I would assume that he goes into the Premier League and he's their number one. But that being said, if it's a situation where he doesn't see the field And if he does see the field, there's not a lot of impact. There's going to be question marks. And one of the things that I don't want to see is Haji Wright back in the championship next season. Like, that is a commonality with teams that are promoted from the championship to the Premier League. There's a lot of roster turnover. You're talking like 12 to 15 player turnover. And a lot of those guys end up back in the championship. And that's one of the things that I would like to avoid with Haji Wright. But we'll see. We'll see about that. By the way, I give Haji a B as well too. And again, it's because of the inconsistency. And I know it's kind of a shitty thing to do with a guy that had a 17 goal season. But the reality is that it wasn't on a consistent level or on a consistent basis. Again, man, he has purple patches. But that being said, man, again, he was one of the main reasons why they got promoted. So I don't want to take it away from him. I really don't. But it is what it is. Let's talk about Patrick Agyemang. And Patrick, man, what a season for Patrick Agyemang. And of course, you look at what he did at Charlotte in 2025. And I thought he did quite well, making his USMNT debut in Camp Cupcake in 2025. And he was able to take that showing and then parlay that into call-ups the rest of the season. But it was because of those call-ups, and it was because of the productivity that he showed in Major League Soccer. He gets the move to Derby County. And of course, he started off injured. I think it was like a slight groin pull that kind of limited it at the start of the season. But he appeared in 37 matches this season, started 33, played 2,760 minutes, and he still managed a 10-goal, 3-assist type of season. And Patrick, man, I'll tell you what, I was actually quite impressed, but I have to also admit that his finish to the season from essentially February 14th in a 2-0 victory against Swansea City, where he had a brilliant game, scored in 88 minutes. The remaining matches within the championship, which of course was like he got hurt. Obviously, he got hurt, but it was the remaining matches all the way up into the March window. And it was Hull City. Hold on. It was Watford, Hull City, Blackburn, Sheffield Wednesday, Millwall, Portsmouth, Birmingham. He didn't score at all, and didn't necessarily have an impact. He did score coming off the bench against Belgium, and that was it for the remainder of season before he got hurt. And again, I give all kudos to Patrick Agyemang. I think that he took a very solid 2025, built off it to get that move. He bet on himself. And I love players that do that more oftentimes than not. And I thought that for his inaugural season at a higher level, I give him all the credit in the world. I know a lot of people thought he was going to struggle. I didn't necessarily think he would, because he's got the size and the pace to hang in the championship. And I think he proved me right. And I think he proved a lot of the doubters wrong. And because of that, I'm going to give him I'm going to give him an A-. I was a little bummed that he got hurt there at the end, and he's missing the World Cup. So listen, man, you kind of have to be real about this. But because he did what he did, man, I give all the credit to Patrick Agyemang, and I'm absolutely thrilled that he was able to go out there and silence a lot of people. Now, mind you, there was a lot of haters last year as well too. There was a lot of haters from a lot of USMNT content creators, because he was just your prototypical MLS striker. Yeah. And as soon as he makes the jump, that goes away. I mean, immediately it just goes away. But there was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of negativity about people wondering whether or not that was going to translate. And I think he proved everybody wrong. Hats off to him. I think he's a great player. And what I like about Agyemang is that he's 25, and there's no reason not to think that he won't be around for the 2030 cycle. And if he continues to develop and get comfortable in England, and even potentially lead Derby to a promotion, man. Let me tell you, the sky's the limit for Patrick Agyemang. Let's talk about Josh Sargent. And Josh is an interesting dude because he finished the 2024-2025 season actually pretty well. And he got off to a very hot start in the 2025-2026 season. I think he had like 6 goals in 6 games. And then he just went cold. He went ice cold. And by the way, Norwich City was not a good team. I think they had a couple coaching switches in the season before they actually rescued their season. It was looking like he was headed to a relegation. And then you had all the brouhaha and the controversies surrounding his move to Toronto. And a lot of people felt that maybe he may or may not have burned some bridges. But he is now in Major League Soccer. And now, granted, he's only featured in 7 matches, started 6. And so far, it's only 2 goals and assists. And I think the last goal was April 22nd against Philadelphia. So it's looking like Josh. By the way, Josh is not. I don't think Josh is going to make the World Cup roster. Let's just put that aside. What I liked about Josh was that even though he always seemed to be injury prone, he always popped up with a 15-goal season in the championship. Like, he was in that 15 to 20 goal range as a championship striker, but it was never really enough for Norwich. Like, he just couldn't get them over the hump. And now, granted, it's not necessarily on Josh. I'm not saying it is, because in football, one player can't carry you. But that being said, it's like, when you looked at what Norwich was last year, and they had a squad around Josh, and they couldn't seal the deal. And I think there was a lot of source of frustration with that as well, too. He had the opportunity to move to Germany this summer, and he killed the deal. And I think a lot of it was that there was really solid links to Burnley and also Leeds as well, too. And they both fell through because, Josh's agent was, looking for somewhere around 25 million. I think both teams were looking at him somewhere in the 15 to $20 million range. Potentially trying to find a cheap deal on a striker. But it just didn't work out, and he stayed at Norwich, and it was what it was. Listen, man, when you look at Josh with the national team too, not showing up to the Gold Cup was a disaster for him. And that would have kept him in rotation, in that striker rotation, had he showed up and did what Agyemang did in the Gold Cup. Because if he shows up, he's a starter. 100% he's a starter at the Gold Cup. And, if he bangs in 4 goals at the Gold Cup and all of a sudden now, there's some momentum behind him, he gets called into the fall windows, and who knows exactly what happens with that. But as it did, he elected to not show up. And as a result, Patrick Agyemang was able to continue in that, I guess you can say, in that third striker role. And now that he's in Major League Soccer, now we're waiting for Josh to become what Josh Sargent is, which is a solid goal scorer. But that ship has sailed for the World Cup. And as far as a grade is going, I'm going to give Josh a C. Because really, in totality, the 2025-2026 season just wasn't a good year for him. It really wasn't. After that hot start with Norwich, like, he got so cold, like he got ice cold. And granted, Norwich didn't have good players around him, but let me tell you, the better ones figure it out. It just is what it is. Let's talk about Damian Downs and man, I hate to do it to Damian because his 2024-2025 season was so good. And it looked like he was on that upward trajectory, man. It really did. I was paying attention to Damian last year, and it was looking so good. And boy, did he make a bad mistake this summer. Like, had he just stayed and fought for his position there, it probably would have worked out. As it was, he decides to go to Southampton because the way that he's looking at it is he's going to a promotion contender. And he bets on himself that he'll be able to go in, win the starting spot, score 10 to 15 goals, get them promoted, and then next season you're in the Premier League. Like, he's looking at it as the best way to get to the Premier League by going through the championship. And it just didn't work out. He didn't win a starting spot when he was given time, just couldn't find the back of the net. He makes the loan move back to Germany in the winter window, and nothing happens. No, like he doesn't even score a goal. And it's bad. It's bad for Damian. Like, there has to be a reset now. Like, there's times where you listen to your agent, and then there's times where you just say, this is not the most productive move for me. Like, let me stay here, let me compete. This is probably like my best path, because at the end of the day, you're in the Bundesliga. You're in the top flight of the German in the German game. It's like, that's part and parcel to the Premier League, but it is what it is. But unfortunately, I got to give Damian an F, and I don't like to do it. I really don't. But it is what it is, Damian. It is what it is. Greg 1987 says, should Sargent have stayed in the championship? Yeah. I do. I think so. And I think what he did inadvertently burned a bridge. And I don't know if there's another bridge back. Like, let's just say that for whatever reason, like, he lights up Major League Soccer in Toronto this year and next year. And there is a team that's looking at him like, okay, cool, let's bring him back. Potentially. Some people say that once you go back, you'll never get back to Europe. I don't necessarily believe that. But, people talk, agents talk, football people in England talk, and I think that bridge is completely burned. So, yeah, I think it's Major League Soccer for the rest of his career. All right, let's get into some forwards. Let's talk about Christian Pulisic. And this is an interesting one. And there's a lot to take in with Christian, because current form would suggest a low grade. And when you look at the national team, he's been ice cold for the national team as well, too. Hasn't scored since, I think, November of 2024. But I go back to the start of the 2025-2026 campaign. Through the first half, he was the best player in Serie A. He was the best goal scorer in Serie A. And it was looking like he might be the Golden Boot winner in that league. And then small injuries took him out of the starting lineup, and there was recovery. And the calendar switched to January, and we haven't seen him score a goal. We've only seen him pitch in with an assist. That might have been 3-4 weeks ago. And it is what it is. His form is absolutely dreadful. But again, Christian is that guy. And it's hard for me to knock him because of the form. Because it literally was just 4 months ago where a lot of people were talking about him as a Golden Boot winner. So, man, I'm going to give him a B, because, again, we know the high end talent that Christian has. And we know what he means to the national team. And even in the current run of form, there's no way that he's not going to the World Cup. He's that important. But you do have to knock him. You do have to knock him down a peg because let's be perfectly honest. This scoring drought inexplicably came out of nowhere and it has to be addressed. And my personal belief is that Christian's playing hurt. That's my personal belief. And I think that he's trying to play through it. Me being around as long as I have, I know what it's like to play through pain, and I know what it's like. I know what it looks like when somebody's trying to perform while dealing with a slight injury. Like for me, that's kind of where I think that's at. I'm just guessing. But again, it's very hard to go from being considered to be a golden boot candidate to off the face of the earth in a matter of like 3 months. It just inexplicably doesn't happen unless there's an injury somewhere in the mix. And when we saw Christian in March against Belgium and Portugal, he kind of looked uncomfortable on the pitch. It looked like he was trying to overcompensate. And so, yeah, me personally, I think there might be a situation where he is dealing with injury, trying to play through it. It's not bad to keep him out. But that being said, with only X amount of games left in the season, maybe this might be the time just to kind of, the AC Milan has already secured Champions League for next season. I don't like they're not winning the Scudetto. So, if there is a niggling little injury that he's dealing with, shut him down. It's more important for us to have the best version of Christian this summer than him to kind of hobble and limp in. That's not something that I want. But I give Pooley a B. I give Pulisic a B because I think in totality, it actually has been a very, I wouldn't say a very good year. It wasn't a disaster of a season. It wasn't Damian Downs by any stretch of the imagination. But, he was considered a golden boot guy as early as December of last year. So that means, that first half of the season was incredible. Weston McKennie has had an unbelievable season. And he ended up being kind of a jack of all trades type of players. Like whatever you needed from him, he gave you, and he always gave you consistently good performances, whether he was scoring or whether he was not scoring, but he actually scored quite a bit in all competitions. In the Serie A, he started 29 of 33, played 2,575 minutes, 5 goals, 5 assists. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that being said, he was one of the major pieces. And when Juventus sacked their coach, they brought in their new guy, and West got a lot of run to play, and he responded to the point where, there was talk about West leaving and pursuing other avenues because he was so important to, the success of Juventus. And towards the end of the season, he actually was our best player. And I think it wasn't even close. I think it was like, Balogun was scoring his way into that position, rightfully so. But West with the consistency, and what you like about Wes is that, depending on the formation that we play, if we're playing 3 in the back, or we're playing 4 in the back, there's multiple positions where you can plug Wes in, and he is going to give this team a lot of impact. I give Wes an A+, and I think it's been one of those type of seasons where he's finally kind of broken through, where there isn't going to be another off season of will he or won't he stay, or if a new coach is coming in and he has to, again, start his way from the bottom back up again. Like, I'm sure it's kind of exhausting for Wes at this stage of his career, but I think those days are over now with this type of season. And Wes has certainly earned it. And I think that he has, I think he's rightfully earned the A plus. Malik Tillman had it was interesting because I thought this was actually a pretty successful season for him. First into the Bundesliga, and of course he was the marquee signing for Eric Ten Hag's Bayer Leverkusen in the summer. And of course, Ten Hag didn't last all that long there. But being a $45 million signing and coming over with a lot of fanfare, and I thought that for him taking a step up, I knew there was going to be growing pains. This was not a perfect season whatsoever for Malik Tillman whatsoever. But I thought he had some nice moments. And of course, for him, it's growing into this league. It is showing not only that he is capable of being a threat, and he had some nice goals this season, no doubt about it. Lately, playing time is kind of, has come very hard to find for him. But that doesn't erase, 3/4 of a season where I thought that was he their best player? No. But I thought, again, for making that jump up into a league that is a very physical league, I thought he held his own quite well. I'm going to give Tillman a C. Because, when you're one of those type of attacking players, you're going to have a little bit more to show. And I just didn't think that was there. And again, it's not his fault. It's his first season in the Bundesliga. And he is going to get better because of it. And I think a C is kind of appropriate for Malik Tillman. Gio Reyna. Interesting guy. All right, I'm going to give Gio a C minus. And I get it. He goes to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and listen, he struggled to get into the starting lineup all season long. I give him a tremendous amount of credit. He put his ego to the side. He goes to a team that is not a high-profile team, and he found his minutes hard to come by. But yet, we didn't hear any dust-ups. We didn't hear any rumors coming out of their locker room. He seems to have humbled himself. He seems to be coachable. We heard nothing but good things from his coach. And when he finally came into the national team, he gave us a November window to remember. And I thought it was a very good welcome back for Gio. And of course, he made the March camp as well, too. Didn't play a lot in that March camp, but, whatever. But again, for a guy that U.S. fans salivate over because of the top end talent, the reality is that Gio, it was a disappointing season for Gio. It is what it is. It is what it is. I certainly don't think he needs another move. I would actually like him to stay at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's only 22, 23 years old, so by no means, by no means is there a rush. He still has another year where he can, continue to fight for a spot, and I think it would be good for him. But as far as talent matching reality, yeah, that's not a thing for Gio Reyna. So, yeah, actually, I'm going to give him a D. I'm going to give Gio a D. Yunus Musa. I feel bad for Yunus. I really do. Because he didn't necessarily get the move that he wanted this summer, and he was kind of backed into a move to Atalanta. And, he was put on a team that had a very good player playing ahead of him, didn't get a lot of run. But there were a few times where he made had a couple nice moments, but the reality is that was such a killer for Yunus. It didn't help his matters with the U.S. men's national team. And really, one of the things he could have done was show up to Gold Cup. I do believe he could have showed up to Gold Cup. He didn't. And, it is what it is. But when you are a fringe guy, you have to stand out. I don't know what happened between Pochettino and Yunus Musa. I don't know if it was a bad first impression or he's just the type of guy who just doesn't necessarily have a fit with what Pochettino wants to do. There's a lot of different reasons why he hasn't been included in the national team. And, the move to Atlanta just didn't help him. It didn't help him. It didn't help his case at all. And when you're not playing, and you don't necessarily have that top end talent, it's not going to work out. And I feel bad for Yunus because, obviously he was a very big part of what we were 4 years ago. And under Berhalter, he was a mainstay. I think a lot of people assumed that he was going to be there under Pochettino, and he just hasn't. Chances are pretty good whoever the next coach is, Yunus Musa gets called back in. I can see that happening. But as of right now, this has kind of been a disastrous season, much to the likes of, a Gio or even a Damian Downs, if you will. But I still think there's a talented player in there. But yeah, I gotta give him. I'll give him a D. I don't want to do Yunus dirty, but I will give him a D. Man, a part of me kind of wishes he stayed at AC Milan. Yeah, who knows what would have happened? Maybe the same thing happens. Maybe it doesn't. But at least you have an opportunity to change minds. I don't necessarily think that was an option, but I don't know, man. I just think that this has just been a bad year for Yunus. All right, Brendan Aronson. Now, Brendan was a surprise. I didn't think a lot of people were going to give Brendan a lot of credit here. A lot of people didn't think that he was going to succeed in the Premier League. Appeared in 34, started in 27, played 2,253 minutes, had 4 goals and 5 assists this season for a Leeds team that is safe from relegation, which, considering that, 2 of the 3 teams stayed up this season, and Brendan played a large part into it. And, he is just that guy who is just an energy guy. I guess the cool kids these days call him a vibes guy. But certainly he scrapped and clawed and fought, to get into that starting 11. And he made some impact this season. And I would probably assume that Brendan's going to be there next year as well, too. He is getting better at the Premier League level, and that much is obvious. I don't think he had the type of season that warrants an A, but I think that credit has to be given. And it's high time that the U.S. men's national team fans admit that they were wrong, that Brendan not only can play, but he can make an impact for a team in the Premier League. And if he continues to develop, maybe there could be a move to a bigger club. Maybe. That's a big if. It's a big if. But credit where credit's due. I'm going to give Brendan a B because I think it was just a solid campaign for him. And I wasn't, you want your wingers to have like a 1-in-3 goal ratio. It wasn't that. It wasn't even close to that. But, considering it's the Premier League and, the world's best players congregate in England to play this game, he held his own for a good portion of the season. And I give him all the credit in the world. Let's talk about Rokas Pukstas. because this young kid at Hajduk Split was phenomenal this season. This kid was amazing. Appeared in 28 minutes, started 25. He had 2,273 minutes, 9 goals and assists this season. And when you start looking at his, when you start looking at, his goal charts, it's like, he had a nice little run there from, it looks like from early February through March, it looked like he was on absolute fire, and he was, let's be perfectly honest. But I think with this kid, the sky is the limit. I'm really curious to see what next year looks like for this kid. And by the way, that first camp post World Cup for the senior national team, I want to see him in cap, and I want to see him get his first caps. Without a doubt. Like there's four young guys that I want to see get their first caps immediately. Cap tie him to the federation and start getting them some playing time with the senior national team and get them ready for 2030. This kid is going to be an absolute star for the national team. I am listen, dude, I am 100% high on this kid. Without a doubt. I think this kid is going to be a star. I think he's 19. And yeah, I get it. He's, playing in the Czech league. I get it. But you got to start somewhere. And if he can, get to that 15 to 20 goal range, and I certainly think he's capable, then you're going to start talking about higher leagues. And, the sky's the limit for this kid. And we need another dude playing at a high level in Europe. And I think this kid can. I give him a B for his, I give him a B for the season. Yeah, man, I want to give him an A, but yeah, I can't. Let's see. What about Johnny Cardoso? We're getting to Johnny. Have you watched Messi live? I have, actually. And it was everything that I thought it would be. It wasn't Barcelona, like prime Barcelona years, but I saw Messi live last year, and it was amazing. All right, let's get to Alex Zendejas. And I like Alex, man. I've been a Zendejas guy for a while, and I think he's a fabulous player, 28 years old, and it's like he's had a pretty brilliant showing. And between the Apertura and the Clausura, he's been phenomenal. I guess for the wherever the hell we're at now in the playoffs or whatever it is, I think he's got 4 goals, 3 assists. Had dealt with some injuries this season. And he's been the underrated killer that just doesn't get any respect with the national team. That's the that's the thing. But every time I see him, he's scoring goals. Every time. Every time I tune into Club America, he's scoring goals. Whenever he's with the national team, dude scores goals. The weird conversation right now is do you carry Gio? And it's yes, but that's not the conversation. The conversation is gonna be for that sixth forward /10 or whatever. Between a guy like Diego Luna and a guy like Alex Zendejas. And while I admit that Diego Luna's had a great start to the campaign this year, had a pretty good season last year as well too. When you're talking about you need a late goal in the World Cup and you're looking down your bench and you have an Alex Zendejas, I don't know, man. If it were me, I'd take Zendejas. But we know that he's taken Luna. And it is what it is. But I think Zendejas has had a good season. The problem with Zendejas is Yeah, he kind of got hurt a couple times. And he was out for a little bit. The cool thing about Zendejas is when he came back, he started scoring goals again. And I don't know if that is because it's Liga MX, or he's just that type of dude where he can just hit the ground running again. I'm going to give Zendejas a B. Because again, like if we're going to be consistent with this, we have to take into the account of national team productivity on top of club form, and injuries have to be a part of this conversation. So I'm giving him a B. Gianluca Busio. I like Gianluca. I really do. You guys know how I feel about Gianluca. I think he's Venezia's best player. I think he was one of the biggest reasons why they got promoted. He started all 36 matches for Venezia. 3,113 minutes played, 7 goals, 3 assists, and of course that is coming from central midfield. More of an 8 than a 10. And I think that's a good numbers haul from that position. And he is the dude that gets their attack going. He is the engine in their midfield. And you guys know exactly where I sit on this. Yes, next season he'll be in Serie A, but I think that he probably should get a move to a higher league. I think he's kind of there. I think he's 23 years old. And I kind of want to see what that looks like. We saw him 2 years ago in Serie A as a 21-year-old, and of course they went straight down. And that's my biggest issue with this. Is unless Venezia is in a position where they are going to spend to put talent on that team to ensure that they're going to stay up where he's going to get better at that level. All right, fine. But it's Venezia. They don't have the revenue streams of, the top 8 teams in Serie A where they can go out and do that. They're not going to be competing financially with those teams. And if they are going to improve, it's going to be around the margins. And, there's a good chance they go right back down again. And I just don't want to see that happen again. Like, again, he's 23 years old. Like, he has to be consistently playing at a level where he is going to continue to improve, where he can actually be a consistent member of the U.S. men's national team, because it's not consistent for him. Like, he'll get called in, he'll have a good camp, but he'll be absent from the next one. And, personally, like, that's the thing. It's like he has to be at a club that has a little bit more shine to it, where he is, I guess you can say, consistently in the conversation. And I think that he has earned the move away from Venezia, just like Tanner did a couple years ago with Olympic Lyon. So, I granted that was on the back end of an Olympic tournament in Paris, but yeah, I think Gianluca is a brilliant player, and I also think he's going to be a part of the 2030 cycle as well too. But I give him an A. I think his season was just amazing with Venezia. He was absolutely brilliant. All right, let's get into the midfield now. All right, so let's talk about Tyler Adams. And Tyler, interesting season. And by the way, congratulations to AFC Bournemouth. It looks like they're going to secure European play for next season. And quite honestly, that's actually quite an achievement for a team like Bournemouth. And it's going to be a shame too, because I think they're losing their head coach as well too. I think Andiri Iriola is going to be leaving. But Tyler Adams was actually injured for half the season this year. Only featured in 22 matches, only started 19, 1,500 minutes, 2 goals, 2 assists. Of course, he is a holding midfielder, so he's not really going to be scoring a lot of goals. His value is putting out fires as a holding midfielder, and he does it better than most in the Premier League. I would probably say that he's a top 5. An underrated killer in the Premier League that flies under the radar because obviously, they have bigger names and whatnot. But, there were rumors that Manchester United want him. Liverpool are kicking the tires on a guy like Tyler Adams. And it's like, that's a huge sign of respect that some of the biggest clubs are looking at him. Again, the problem that I have with this is the fact that he only played half the season because of injury. And he was missing from some of our biggest camps on the national team side. But, he's back and he's going to be a part of the World Cup, rightfully so. But if we're handing out grades based on the calendar season that is coming to an end, you kind of have to give him like a B-. When he's played, he's been great, but he missed half the season with injury. And some would probably give him a C, and that's okay. And I don't think it would be wrong, but yeah, okay, so maybe I will give him a C because when you think about Bournemouth and the success that they've had, they've kind of done it without him. They were able to do more than tread water without Tyler. Now, granted, he's back in the lineup and they're getting very good results. Like I don't want to shit on Tyler. It's just I was kind of curious to see what they would look like without him, and they still continue to get results without him. But again, the injuries caught up to him this year. And, considering that in 2024, during Copa America, he was playing with a back injury that immediately required surgery. And so he was gone for a good portion of the 2024-2025 season. He comes back, he's healthy, and then he gets hurt again. So, with Tyler, one of the things that I would like to see in the next couple seasons is him play a season relatively healthy. That would be fantastic. That would be absolutely fantastic. But in this case, yeah, it is what it is. I think that Tyler is going to be a huge player for us. But, for his grade this season, yeah, I think it's going to be like a high C. Tanner Tessman is an interesting one because his minutes have kind of fallen off. And I've always wondered what this was. Was it just a lack of consistency? Probably. His last league game where it was really convincing probably was against Nice or maybe Paris FC, where you had 65 minutes in that one, but really kind of coming into March. Yeah, he played well against Le Havre. But after that, you kind of saw the minutes really just kind of trickle down. And so you're kind of wondering if maybe his productivity kind of slipped, or maybe, his form kind of dipped a little bit. And, again, he is a holding midfielder. He played a little center back, but for the most part, I thought this was going to be the campaign for him where, this was going to, move him up a little bit, where other bigger clubs around Europe are going to take notice of him. And maybe it didn't finish out the way that he hoped, but I still thought, like, for a good portion of the season, I thought he was playing at a very good level, and actually had some very good moments this year as well too. I liked Tessman through February. You're talking from the start of the season to February, so like 3/4 of the season, he was an automatic starter. I think he missed a little bit of time with injury, but it wasn't anything serious. I'm gonna give Tess a high B because doing Yanks abroad on a week-to-week basis, you saw the consistency in his play. It was there. And especially for a club that was on the verge of getting relegated, because of financial reasons, and they were under transfer embargoes and some of these other financial penalties, and yet I thought he had a pretty solid season, man. But again, consistency with me as well too is just as important to players. But when you're talking about the last month, his minutes have decreased, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's injury. I don't know if it's he lost some form. But that has to be in consideration, and I'll give him a B. Johnny Cardoso. Johnny freaking Cardoso. Everybody's wet dream. Johnny's got the fan club, man. He is the dude that fans salivate over. And I get it. Pretty good baller, but in the calendar year, dealing with some injuries, he only played in 15 matches, started 12. And towards the end of the season, there was an issue with me, at least, was consistency. And I know a lot of people were glowing over the fact that, he is in a, he's in a chance, he was essentially making a deep run with, into the Champions League, and all of that's fantastic. Listen, man, you're playing in the Champions League and you're making deep runs in the Champions League and you're starting. Yeah, you're a good player. Obviously. But all you have to do is look at his performances, and you can see that there was a lack of consistency from start to start. And he just got hurt. And he's out for the World Cup. And Johnny has been dealing with injuries this season as well, too. On top of the fact that his time with the national team in a U.S. shirt has not been great. It really hasn't been good. Like, he's been given opportunities, maybe not on a window-to-window basis, but he has been handed opportunities, and it just hasn't worked out. I'm not saying that Johnny's a bad player. And by the way, in my 3 drafts that I've had for, my World Cup roster, he's been in it. He's not anymore, but he's been in it. But I'm going to give Johnny a B-, probably like a C+, B-. And again, I think that, fans kind of fall victim to the moment. And, as somebody that, that charts stats on a week-to-week basis, I see patterns, and by the way, it's not a bad thing. He's starting, or he was starting, and he probably will be back next season doing the exact same thing. He's not a liability at that level. Let's understand that. But it's consistent performances on a week in, week out basis is that he's still learning how to do it at that level. He's going from Real Betis, a lower club, into a very big club with massive expectations. And so, there's, when you're playing with expectations, that's one of the hardest things to figure out, is that consistency on a week-to-week basis. It's going to come because he's a young player. But I think, giving him a low B, high C is about right for, his first foray with a big club. But again, supreme talent, incredibly talented player. Aiden Morris with Middlesbrough. This dude had a season. And it's funny because Hayden Hackney gets all the I guess you can say all the pub for that team, but Aiden Morris is the engine of that Middlesbrough offense. And played in 40 matches, started 37, 3,203 minutes. He did chip in with 3 assists this season, but again, he's a holding midfielder. His average rating on a week-to-week basis is a 7.5. He is consistently one of their best players and is going to be one of the reasons that I think they're going to get promoted. Now they have to get Southampton. They're in the semifinal. They have a 2-leg with Southampton. If they get past Southampton, they play the winner of Millwall versus Hull. But Middlesbrough was the better team, I think. And we'll find out exactly how this plays out. But there's a very good chance that Middlesbrough gets promoted and Aiden Morris is in the Premier League next year. And by the way, I think he probably might be able to hold his own in the Premier League. From a consistency level, he's been brilliant. And I think we all saw this coming when he made the move from Columbus. I think we all saw this one coming. He gets constantly called into the national team. Now, it's weird because he hasn't really popped with the national team. He hasn't been a liability with the national team, but he hasn't necessarily been that dude yet. Like, he hasn't ascended to the level of Tyler Adams. I don't necessarily think he's gotten necessarily all the opportunities like he's been called in, but playing time wise, yeah, he's gotten some run. I'll retract that. He has gotten some run. But, from a consistency standpoint, from an impact, and due to the fact that he is like the engine of their, of their offense, of their attack, I'm going to give Aiden an A. I think Aiden was easily one of our most consistent players abroad this year, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Let's talk about Christian Roldan. And listen, everybody knows that I'm a Seattle homer. That's I'm from Seattle, so yeah, dude, I like the Sounders. I really do. The one thing that I will say is that the start to his 2026 season has not been good. It's been bad. A couple solid performances, but otherwise, I still can't get that back pass that he made against KC last weekend, out of my mind. That was wretched. But, his 2025 season, he had a career year. And he got called into the national team for the work that he did on Messi in the Leagues Cup final. 2025 was his best season. From a statistical standpoint, from a form standpoint, he was one of Seattle's most important players. And they don't lift a trophy without Christian Roldan. I thought his play with the national team was solid. Was it great? No. Was it a liability? No. It was solid. And there is a reason why he continues to get called in. Because every single time he puts the shirt in and he steps on the training pitch, he busts his ass. And these are the things that Pochettino respects about him. And the fact that he has won every single trophy there is to win in the United States. There's a lot that goes into it. And the thing about it is I have to call this straight down. I'm going to give Christian a B because, again, it is very good year last year. Very, very good year last year. Shitty start to this season. And about a mid performance for the national team. So it's kind of like right there. Like I'll give Christian a B. The days of him potentially being an A player are probably gone. Yeah, probably. But you would like to see heading into a World Cup season, him at least at least in league play, carrying the same form that he did last year. It just hasn't. And listen, I understand too, because you're chasing a World Cup roster spot. And so there's pressure on you. And yeah, maybe that's playing into it. Who knows? But yeah, let's be real with Christian. The form that he carried in last year, it was a little bit different because he wasn't even on the U.S. men's national team radar until after the Leagues Cup. And so I think some of that has to play into it. Let's talk about Sebastian Berhalter. Sebastian's interesting because I thought that last year was a very good year for him. I thought he was very instrumental in Vancouver getting to the MLS Cup final. Him and Thomas Muller, 100%. This season, he started 9 of 10 matches, and he's got 3 goals and 4 assists. He's been good. He's been good, man. He's been good. The last 5-6 matches, he's been really good. He's peaking at the right time. And this is the thing about Sebastian, where last year with the national team, I thought he had good performances, and then I thought he had bad performances as well too. It was kind of a mixed bag last year with Sebastian. And, that's fine because that was kind of like his first real solid time with the national team, right? You're going to have ups and downs. But what I like about it is he carried what he did last year into this season too. And he's a big reason why Vancouver is probably going to be pushing again for a potential trophy this season. From the season form of the last year into this season, I'm going to give Sebastian, I'm going to give Sebastian like a solid A-. I think that Sebastian's played incredibly well, and I don't think anybody can take that away from him. There's going to be people that say Major League Soccer is a minor league. I think that's disrespectful. Is it the Premier League? No. Is it Serie A? No, of course not. And everybody understands that, but it's still a top 8, top 10 league in the world. And, players are constantly being sold overseas. Sebastian's going to get a move overseas. And, it's that type of league. But, credit where credit's due. Credit where credit's due. Sebastian has had a very good year and a half. And considering where he was when he first started his professional journey, he has improved leaps and bounds. All right, let's get to the fullbacks here, and we got to talk about Jedi. And Jedi, has not had a good year, and a good year and a half. He's been dealing with injuries. The good news is that he will be available for the World Cup. I like it. But let's be perfectly honest. Jedi before the knee injury, Jedi was like an A type of player. And that knee injury, he was out for a long time with the knee injury. And when he came back, he kind of hit the ground running, but then Fulham slowed him down a little bit. As far as the national team goes, yeah, he missed a lot of camps, and that's where Max Arfson stepped in, and Max was hit or miss. He was hit or miss, but Jedi's season, that was like a D at best, and a lot of it has to do with injuries and and him not being able to really kind of just have a run of games and just catch form and get back to his old self. But, that's the thing, is they've been slow rolling him with the World Cup in mind. And I appreciate it, by the way. Thank you, Fulham. But let's be perfectly honest, this was not one of Jedi's best seasons. Let's talk about Serginho Dest. He's back. And I thought Serginho, by the way, had a really good season. until the injury. Until the injury. Started 24, 2,049 minutes. He had a goal and 4 assists. And I thought he was pretty consistent until the injury. And it was nice to see him. It's nice to see him back. I think he got, 30 minutes against Ajax. That was good to see him. But, consistency, he was solid. He was solid. And, considering how we like to play, he's going to be a huge part of what we're doing this summer. I'm going to give Serginho a B. He did get hurt. Let's be perfectly honest. But I still think Serginho is a starter. I really do. I think Serginho is better fit for this team. I've always thought that Tim Weah is a better for us higher up the pitch. It was a shame we didn't get to see him in March. It really was. But it is what it is. But that being said, he's back. I'm happy. And hopefully he regains his 90-minute form before we hit the World Cup. He's gonna be a pivotal dude. Speaking of Tim Weah, I'm kind of hit or miss on Tim Weah. I don't think he had that great of a season. I think consistency with Marseille was a little bit of an issue. I can't necessarily cut him some slack either because he's coming from Juventus, what I consider a little bit higher level. Now, you can make the argument that he wasn't playing on a regular basis at Juventus. Okay. And this was really kind of like his first full season, 25 starts, 2,100 minutes, 2 goals, 2 assists. But, his best run of form was probably January 13th through. I'm actually going to go back farther. I'm going to say, January 7th through, you're right, January 7th through February 20th, where he was absolutely on fire. And every outing, he was just getting better. And then it kind of tailed off a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. I'm going to give Weah a B. But again, consistency issues for me. And that's, it is what it is. He's essentially moving from being a forward player to a defender. There's going to be some growing pains. Alex Freeman. I'm going to give Alex an A. And I think, when you look at the evolution of Alex Freeman from last year, which was kind of his first full season in Major League Soccer, to the point where he gets his call up and he is in every camp in 2025, and he continues to get better every single camp, and he continued to get better throughout the season. He gets his move to Villarreal. And it took him some time to adjust, but he gets on the pitch with Villa, and he looks excellent. He looks great. And that is your right back, starting right back in the 2030 World Cup, right there. One without a doubt, that's your starting right back in 2030. For 2026, dude, he makes the World Cup roster. Whether or not he's going to be a starter is yet to be determined. But the fact that he can fill in multiple positions makes him valuable, and the fact that he has turned into such an asset, and it doesn't look like the jump from Major League Soccer into La Liga has affected him one bit. He looks pretty awesome. So an A for me for Freeman. Max Arfston. And Max has actually had a pretty solid start to the campaign. 11 starts, 3 goals, 4 assists, 948 minutes. I thought last year was a pretty good year for Max as well, too. Of course, with the injury last year to Jedi, he stepped in as the starting left back for the U.S. men's national team, and I thought that it was hit or miss on the national team level. I thought there were some performances that were good, and other performances he looked completely helpless. But again, you're growing into a role at the international level. There are going to be bad games, and there certainly was. But at the Major League Soccer level, he has been good, playing a little higher up the pitch. He's not really playing that position for the Columbus Crew, but his numbers are pretty freaking solid in Major League Soccer. Yeah, I'll give Max a low B. Like I want to give him credit for his league form, but I also have to call his international form for what it is, and that kind of takes it down a little bit for me. Let's talk center backs, and we talk Chris Richards. And Chris Richards obviously is our best center back in Europe right now. And I thought the season started good for Richards. I thought it started incredibly well. He was playing next to Mark Gahey, and I thought it was a tale of essentially two halves of the season, because I thought playing next to Mark Gahey, he had some unbelievable performances in the first half. And obviously he was playing in Europe in the Conference League. Had some really good performances there too. Crystal Palace had some nice wins this year as well too. But Mark Gahey gets sold, and he is essentially left on an island in that back three with I think Maxime Lacroix is in that back three. And then another young player, and he is left to carry the load for Crystal Palace, and I like that too, because I think he's a good leader. But the overall, I guess you can say, the overall strength of that Crystal Palace back three kind of fell apart, and with it, some of his consistency kind of dipped off a little bit in that second half. And it's not for a lack of trying. But, you go back and you kind of look at everything. It's like he was pretty solid actually through March. And then you see what happened in late March into April and into early May. And it's kind of dipped a little bit. Granted, they were playing Newcastle and Liverpool. Yeah, but still, didn't look good against Bournemouth. Didn't look good against West Ham United or Fiorentina. Questionable against Portugal. I don't know, man. I still think he had a pretty good year, man. I think Chris had a really good year, so I'll give him an A-. Mark McKenzie. Interesting. Mark McKenzie. I thought Mark had a pretty solid showing for Toulouse. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. Was it great? No. 26 starts, 2,300 minutes, chipped in with a couple assists. I will say that his second half is better than his first half. In his first half, there was some struggle. In September, in October, looked a little bit better in November, but like from December 13th through February 28th, into March as well too, he actually was a little bit better. I'm going to give Mark a B. I think it was overall. And by the way, Toulouse wasn't really all that great. I'm going to give Mark a B. I think he was pretty good for, the team that he plays on. He had some nice moments. He had some consistency as well too. I'll give him a B. Austin Trusty. He's had a year, man. He's had a year. He started 21 of 23, dealt with some injuries this year, but when he played, he was their best center back. I think he had an average rating in the starts of 7.5. Playing for one of the best teams in Scotland, I understand, man. I get it. But you're playing in Europe, playing for Celtic. One of the big reasons why he went to Celtic. He can put himself in the shop window. And every time he gets called into the national team, he busts his ass in training. Finally got his opportunity against Portugal. And it looks like, for me at least, he's like, if you're playing in a back three, he's one of my starters. Like, he's built himself into this. But he's also dealt with injuries this year as well too. We also have to pull this one into context here. But Austin Trusty has developed into a credible starter for the U.S. men's national team with his play and his consistency. And the funny thing about it is, with the regression of Tim Ream, you start kind of comparing side by side, like some of the things that, some of our past, what Greg Berhalter liked about Tim Ream was the fact that he was good with the ball at his feet, building out of the back. Austin Trusty does the exact same thing. And I think people are starting to wake up to that. Like, he does the exact same thing. He's calm under pressure, makes decisive passes, but what is the most important aspect of a defender? Defending. He does it pretty well. And not only does he do it pretty well, but I like the tenacity in him. I like the fact that he gets after it and he's not afraid to make risky tackles. He's not afraid to jump into challenges. I just like those type of players. I'm going to give Austin a B. I thought it was a very solid season, considering that he lost his battery mate, Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's been, essentially playing next to a backup. And he's carried Celtic. He's carried that Celtic back line. And I think he had an admirable season. I think he really did. Let's talk about Tim Ream. And I give Tim an F. He's my only F. And it sucks, but it is what it is, man. Like, you're 39, 40 years old, and it just is what it is, man. He has noticeably fallen off a cliff, man. He's a step slow. We saw that against Belgium, and he can't even use the angles anymore to get into a decent position to block shots. It's just done. And we're also seeing it now for FC Charlotte FC. And it sucks, man. But it is what it is, man. It comes for everybody. It comes for everybody. The end comes for everybody. And we've seen the end now. We've seen the end now of Tim Ream. And thankfully we have Austin Trusty that can step in. Lastly, Noah Kai Banks. I'm going to give Noah Kai a solid B this year. He stepped in for injury in Augsburg. That's why we haven't seen him. Since their first choice center backs have gotten back from injury, Noah Kai hasn't featured. But what I will say is, it takes a lot of stones for a 19-year-old kid, to come into those situations at the level in which they play, and show that type of form. And it just lets Augsburg knows that they have a starter in their ranks. It also lets everybody else know that around the Bundesliga that there's a young star there. I was quite impressed with Noah Kai. I'm going to give him a B as well too, because I thought it was a great first impression for him. So from that standpoint, yeah, congratulations, Noah Kai. A star is born. Quickly, Jonathan Klinsmann. I think he was with Cessna this year in the Serie B. I got to give him a C. he had some really good starts this year, but he got injured at the end of the season. I'm not giving him a C for that. I just thought inconsistent play. But that being said, it's like, dude, when you look at Cessna and their back line, they were garbage, hot garbage. So, but he had some nice performances, and I thought it was a good all-around showing from Jonathan Klinsmann and Cessna this year for the goalkeeper. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. Coming up in a couple days, I'm going to have a show about Major League Soccer and the reason why they cannot compete in CONCACAF Champions League. We saw Nashville go out. We saw LAFC go out in actually kind of a rough way after being up 2-1 in the first leg. They absolutely get pumped for goose in the return leg, and so we're going to be talking about what is preventing Major League Soccer and some of their teams from really competing in this continental tournament. It has been a want of Major League Soccer to I don't like to use the term dominate because I don't think that's the right word, but to be far more competitive than they have been, right? You're only talking like in the modern era of the Champions League, only one team has won it, of course, go Sounders. And it's an incredibly hard ask for a Major League Soccer team when you talk about budgets, when you talk about roster depth. It's like Major League Soccer does spend a lot more for top end talent because they have the DPs. Of course, of course the numbers are going to look a certain way, but like when you look at the average cost of a roster in Liga MX compared to Major League Soccer, and the fact that we have roster restrictions, we have a salary cap and they don't, you can understand that they're built to be able to withstand injuries and travel, and they don't have to deal with the same shit that Major League Soccer teams have to deal with. So we're going to get into that conversation. I believe we're going to do that on Saturday. So do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on that conversation coming up. And of course, this weekend we do have the live streams. And of course, we're going to have the MLS live stream. And I'm curious to know what you guys want to see this weekend. I'm kind of curious what I'm gonna do this weekend. I would love to do Seattle versus San Diego FC, except it starts at 10:30, man. And I'm telling you, that's way past my bedtime. I don't know what's good. What's good this weekend? Yeah, Chicago versus the Red Bulls is nice, man. I can get down with that. This is not a great weekend for good matchups, although Seattle versus San Diego. So maybe I might do that. Maybe I might do Seattle versus San Diego. We'll do an MLS late night. And of course we have the Premier League live stream as well too. Spurs versus Leeds. That should be fun. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming down this weekend on Stateside Footy. So hopefully you guys will be there. And hopefully you guys on TikTok Live will be there as well too, man. You guys are awesome. And again, man, show the channel some love, man. Let's get these subs up, man. Let's get these subs up. Just saying. All right, guys. You guys have a great evening. That's gonna do it for me. It's been fun, guys. Take care. Good night.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies, tattered flags waving dreams in our